that is the most important thing, is we want your pasture to be more productive, your animals to be more productive.
Welcome to Leaders of the West, a podcast for innovators and changemakers. I'm your host, Jessie Jarvis, the founder of the West, and I'm sitting down with agriculturalists, entrepreneurs, executives, and everyone in between with the goal of digging into the strategies, mindsets, and lessons that have been crucial to the success of ag and Western. Whether you're carrying on the next generation of your family's operation, starting something from scratch, or determined to climb up the leadership ladder, we're going to inspire you to continue to dream big, growing not just you, but the future of agriculture and Western as a whole. Let's go. Welcome to this week's episode of the show. You know, there are a lot of technology companies that say they are built for ranchers, and I think fewer of them can actually say that they've truly changed the way that cattle operations run on the ground and day to day, and Halter is absolutely one of those. And if you guys have been using Of the West's job board lately, you've probably seen that name because they are one of our Unlimited Plus employer partners, and they're one of the fastest growing ag tech companies in the world right now. So they have been doing a lot of hiring and plan to continue that as well. They are actively building that team that really understands our industry. And so I am very excited to sit down today with Andrew Fraser, he is their president. And we're going to talk through the people behind Halter, the product, and what Andrew thinks this next decade and beyond is going to look like for Western agriculture and how tech companies like Halter are part of that. So Andrew, thank you so much for sitting down with us today.
Oh, thank you so much, Jessie, for having me. It's great to be here.
So in case somebody has not by chance heard of Halter, can you set the scene for us? What problem exists on ranches today and obviously in the past that really made you realize that this is the company that you needed to build?
Yeah, so I'll go right back to the start, if that's okay, and then I'll tie it back to our US ranches today. So Craig, our founder, he grew up on a dairy farm here in New Zealand. I do apologize. We call anything here farms. So I'll use ranches for the US, but when I'm talking about New Zealand, I will say farms. Grew up on farm, was actually working as a rocket scientist during the day, but coming back to his farm every weekend to help milking and those things as well. And thought, hey, there's got to be a better way. His parents were shifting cows lots. They weren't kind of getting the productivity out of their grass that they were hoping for out of their pasture. And he kind of came up with this idea of virtual fencing. It had been around before for a while, the concept of it, but he was like, we can make it better, we can make it easier, and we can really get it onto cows. Fast forward to today, we are now on over 1 million cows across the US, Australia, and New Zealand. At its core, we are still virtual fencing and virtual herding. So you've got an app, you draw where you want the cows to stay, and they'll stay in there. And you draw where you want them to move to, and they'll move there as well. So that's great from a labor perspective. It's great from a production and productivity perspective because you can get your cows on the grass that they need to be on at that point in time. And we're just really starting with that as well. We now do heat, so we can do heat alerts. We're looking at the cow's behavior. We're looking at pasture management as well. So it's a lot to take in, but that's where we are today.
I love that. So what did that first iteration of the product look like? And how long did you guys keep that as is before continuing to develop new additions and advancements in that technology?
It was huge and ugly. It was very big, and it was a mix of 3D printing and other bits. It was actually run out of a lunchbox as well. So like almost like Tupperware is how it was operated. So we've come a long, long way from there. Our first 5 years were all about research and development. So we essentially did 5 years of work from an engineering perspective, but then especially from an animal welfare perspective to make sure that the fit was right, to make sure that those cows were happy wearing the collar. So that was our big priority for those first 5 years. And so we've been kind of commercialized. We've been selling to farmers for about 4 to 5 years now as well. The collar's gotten smaller. It's gotten more and more comfortable for the animal as well. It's gotten lighter. And we've also been able to add a lot more smarts into it today. So the collar that you would be putting on, you'd be collaring your animals today in Wyoming or Colorado or wherever you happen to be, is now built off all of these different iterations. It fits above your neck. It's got solar and battery, so it's about a 6-year lifetime that you just leave it on, and that's how long it lasts. And we're constantly adding more and more to the collar every day via software updates, so you don't have to ever worry about having an out-of-date collar too.
Wow, that is impressive, especially on the 6-year battery life that it's ran between solar and actual battery. That's really impressive.
It's something that really matters. We don't want you to have to change batteries frequently or anything along those lines. And so really, we've tried to build it so that it's set and forget. You put it on your animal, it stays on your animal. If you are, for example, sending your cattle off to the works or to a feedlot, you can take it off, put it on a new animal, and it will learn that new animal's behaviors within a couple of weeks as well. So we've tried to make it so that it's really fit for purpose for our US ranchers.
I love that. Okay, so there's a lot of questions that I obviously have, but let's continue to talk about that because I feel like when it comes to our listener, we have equal parts producers, so people who are interested in actually using the Halter product. And then we have another audience of people who they're interested in the company, the culture, because they potentially are interested in being an employee of Halter. But since we're on the topic of ranchers, let's continue there. So with other virtual fencing technologies, obviously the collar wears a cow, and then there is some kind of radio frequency or tower that it communicates with. How exactly does that process work specifically for Halter?
Yeah, so I'm glad we're chatting now because we actually announced a change or something that we've been working on for a long time. We announced that about a few months ago now, but we now integrate our collars with direct-to-satellite technology. So what that means is our collars are talking directly to Starlink or other satellites, and that means you can put them on in any situation. We did when we first came to the US, and I was on a ranch in Wyoming, 250,000 acres, 3,000 cows. That's a lot. And we used to use towers, and so it wasn't really something that we could deploy or any virtual fencing company could deploy because there's no coverage. And if you're putting up towers, you're putting up a lot of towers in that situation. So now that we are direct to satellite, our collars can talk directly there, and it means you can put them on very, very extensive properties, which is so much of the American West. It means that if you've got tough land, very hilly, or lots of valleys, or lots of tree cover, it also means that you're covered under any of those circumstances as well. So it's been a really great thing for our American ranchers.
Well, I think especially the Starlink announcement, I was hoping that that's kind of what you had mentioned, but that really is so critical because exactly what you said, whenever I get a lot of questions just about virtual fencing as a whole, and that is always people's considerations is how does it work in my country? Because so much of the American West, like you said, where we live in Southern Idaho may be completely different than even in this same county to the north of us where I'm on a desert and they're in the mountains, or if you are in South Dakota and you have the Badlands, like whatever that looks like. And so that is definitely a consideration when it comes to the overall use of the product and then how quickly that collar can then take those updates, whether that is because you're moving pastures or moving fields or that technology update that automatically is syncing to the collar, as you mentioned.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that we waited to get right before we released this as well, is we want to make sure that when you are giving instructions to your cows, that you're not waiting hours or any of those types of things to deliver as well. So we've got that under 12 minutes. If you want to shift your cows or anything along those lines, it will take sometime less than 12 minutes to do that so that you can have real, if you're standing there in the pasture with them, alongside them, you can kind of see those changes real time as well. So we're trying to build that for the right thing for our producers.
On that note, because the next question that I usually get is the cost. And I don't want to get down into like the specific breakdown of cost because if a rancher is truly interested about this, I do want them to contact their rep of some kind that is going to work in their territory because we want somebody to build that personal relationship. But as far as the cost is concerned, is it something that is the rancher buys the collar and they own the collar? Do they pay for it annually or monthly? Can you kind of break down that for us?
Yeah, sure. So we do approach things in a slightly different manner. The way that it works is we will give you the collars. So there's no upfront cost in terms of buying the collars or anything along those lines. and then you pay a subscription price to us. And so it's typically an annual subscription. You'll be in contract with us for 2 to 3 years, depending on what makes the most sense from your side. And the reason we do that length as well is we don't want to lock you into 5-year contracts or longer. We want to prove to you that this is the right thing for you and that you can kind of get the most out of your Halter collar as well. So that's how it works. I won't go into too much detail around cost because it is different. We've got a couple of different packages for beefies today. One's more basic. It does the virtual fencing. It does the virtual herding. So it does all of those pieces you need. And then there's a second package as well, which starts to get into, if you do artificial insemination, it kind of helps you from a heat perspective. If you want to get into more detail around pasture and pasture growth, it gets into that. So there's a couple of different packages that we work. But yes, it's a subscription model and there's no kind of cost up front. It's just essentially that's how you subscribe there as well. One thing just to tie to that as well is I really want to emphasize the getting in touch with the local rep. So our approach, we don't have anybody in an office when it comes to sales or support or any of those things as well. We really do try and build that locally. So we've got 3 reps in Montana right now. We've got multiple in Idaho and Colorado and Wyoming. I think we're at 6 or 7 in Texas today as well. And that's growing very fast, but we want our reps to be working with you locally. And so I'd say if wherever you are, Southern Idaho, Sophia's our Southern Idaho rep, but let's find the right person for you that knows that land and knows that community as well.
Yes, and I will make sure if you are a producer and you are interested in utilizing Halter's technology, we will absolutely make sure that we link in the show notes to that contact information so that you can find out who your closest territory sales rep would be and that you can reach out to them for all of that information. Because obviously they're going to need to know more about your operation and what you are looking to use the technology for in order to kind of like best fit you with that. But on that note, I do want to know, and we had Andrew Coppin from RanchBot on a few months ago. So he's not a New Zealander, he's an Australian, and I definitely don't want to lump the two of you together by any means, but we asked him the same question, and so I cannot let you go when it comes to specifically talking about this, but what is the biggest surprise about American ranching culture compared to what you knew coming in from New Zealand?
Yeah, I think one is how similar it is. And at the heart of it, it doesn't matter whether you're a farmer in New Zealand or Australia or a rancher in the US. I think at the heart of it, all that matters is your land and your animals. And it's been quite cool, quite refreshing to be able to have very similar conversations in Nebraska or Oklahoma or Oregon with ranchers as I would with dairy farmers or beef farmers in New Zealand or Australia. And I love that side of things, like that care for animals and care for land. And tied to that as well, we get every single person that we hire in the US or Australia, we get them to New Zealand for 2 weeks as part of their onboarding so that they can get out on the road, see how we've done things here, but then we can learn from them. We can learn the best parts about how they are working with their producers locally in states. And then we can do the same as we can kind of share those things too. So one big thing I'd say is how similar it is. And I love that at the heart of it, that's the best thing about agriculture and livestock is at the heart of it, it's the same things that matter regardless of where you are in the world. So that's certainly one thing that I have loved and seen that live as well.
You know, and I can absolutely echo that because that is one thing that from Andrew or even from you, we've also had PJ Butler on the show who he grew up in South Africa. And we work often with a hiring and recruiting company that's actually based out of the UK. And so they do a lot of hiring for companies in Europe that are looking to bring their headquarters into America. And as I've had conversations with, again, all of you who are on completely different continents, that is a similarity is we may call things different terms. For me, it's a ranch. For you, it might be a station or, you know, whatever that looks like. Like you said, it was a farm. But the ultimate passion behind why we are all in agriculture is the same. We love animals. We love natural resources. We want to continue to produce food and fiber for people. And a lot of the issues that we experience and that we face, whether that is with public perception or government overreach or whatever that looks like, is very similar across country. And I think to a degree, it's nice to know that we're not isolated in that. Like it's not just American ranchers who feel like we have a lot of negativity or disconnect from mainstream into what it is that we do because we're only 2% of the population here in America. People in New Zealand who are ranchers and agriculturalists feel that same way. Same with those in Europe. And so I think that it is just a good reminder in how similar we all are, even though we have such differences.
That was beautifully said. You said that 10 times better than I could have, but I completely agree. It's spot on. And like, that's why we largely hire people with a background from farming or from ranching, is they get it. They know how to speak to other farmers and producers. I'm clearly biased, but I think it's the most important profession out there. And historically, farmers and ranchers haven't been given a fair shake. And so I'm really excited that now there's technology like this and many others like RanchBot and others that can help save time, but also increase productivity and profitability as an output as well.
When it comes to life with horses, Purina Animal Nutrition understands that the little moments matter. It could be time spent in the saddle, on the road, or back home at the ranch. But it's also the time you spend asking questions, learning, and always trying to do what's right by your horses. Here at Purina, these moments matter to us too. For more than 130 years, our team has crafted feeds we're proud to stand behind and give our own horses. Because just like you, we're animal people. So on that note, again, kind of transitioning from ranching to Halter as a company, but over half of U.S. ranchers and farmers are now over 55, and rural labor shortages are obviously very severe. I can imagine that, again, if this is an issue here in America, it's probably another issue that you guys are experiencing in New Zealand as well, and other areas where Halter is present. And you guys have really positioned yourself as part of that solution. So how does technology like yours actually change the math on maybe it's succession planning, or maybe it is the cost of labor, and whether that next generation can viably take over an operation?
Yeah, I think there's a lot within that I'll try and kind of chat through as well. We started Halter as a productivity tool. That is the most important thing, is we want your pasture to be more productive, your animals to be more productive. I would say that labor quickly became another factor. It's not that we would ever suggest firing help or anything along those lines, not at all. But we all know how tough it can be to hire in rural areas. And so sometimes if you're mid-season and one of your workers leaves or a farm manager leaves, it really leaves you in a hole. And so I think having Halter as a backup there, being able to kind of do those jobs, I think it's been a really big help for so many farmers. So that's one part that it's an honor to be a part of with that as well. In New Zealand, Australia, and the US, I see the exact same thing in terms of an aging farmer base and it's getting older, and that succession piece becomes so important. One thing that I've seen is like young people love using Halter. It takes a lot of the repairing fences. For me, that's not a value-adding part of ranching, right? Ranching is about your animals, your land, maximizing that. Worrying about repairing fences, that's not that. That's just a job that we've had to put up with all these years. And all of a sudden, if you can pull away some of those things, then all of a sudden it does become a little bit more attractive because you can spend time on what matters. We see that a lot on the dairy side as well. Is the way that it will work here for dairy in New Zealand is, you want to start milking at 4:30 so that you can get in 2 milks during the day. So somebody has to get out of bed at 3:30, go open the gates, go follow the cows behind all the way to the dairy shed. That's a waste of time and effort and energy. Like the milking, that's important. Allocating pasture, that's important. Following behind on your horse or your 4x4, that's not important. And so by taking a lot of those jobs out and automating a lot of those, it means that young people all of a sudden see the excitement around here. They're seeing that there's a path forward for them to have maybe a slightly more balanced lifestyle, or allow them to do a little bit more with their young families, like get away and watch them play football or wrestle or any of those types of things too. So we've seen that that's helped a lot. And the other fun one, just to add one more that I hear a lot, is it's also helped extend for ranchers that just love ranching, and they might be in their mid-60s and it's starting to get a bit physical for them or those things. Like Halter can help with that too. If it's something that you love, it can help extend your life there, because all of a sudden, again, you don't have to do those jobs that might be a little bit more taxing. If you want to shift your cows, You can do that a lot easier. You can bring them into the corrals or to the ranch at the end of, when you need to do branding, as opposed to having to go out and camp up and do all of those things too. So it can also help there. And the amount of ranchers or farmers that I've seen never had a phone and then bought a phone to use Halter and then love Halter, like it's a pretty cool story with that as well. So yeah.
That is literally my dad. He is 83 and has never owned a cell phone in his entire life. And sometimes I think, like, how do you still make a living? And then the other times I think, man, you are the smartest guy alive to have never bought into this idea that you needed a cell phone. How wonderful is that?
It's the best. And we hear that all the time. I've got one of my favorite farmers here, a guy called Pete Morgan. He's lovely. His 93-year-old mum follows along at home, and she'll call him and she'll say, "What have you been doing here? Why are they in this pasture right now?" And I think that's just the best thing, is to kind of keep that enthusiasm and love for agriculture, first and foremost for those folks too.
I love that. Well, and to the awareness that it gives you of your animals, I think that there is a forgotten piece of that. You come home at night, and so you're not out there. We're with our animals all day, right? But like, there are times when you are not with your animals. And so still being able to see where they are, how they're interacting, how they're using that field or that pasture, and where they're grazing, I think that there's a lot of opportunity for it to continue to make us even better and more efficient, which is a better use of our resources and our time. But to specifically to hit on the element of time, I think the same thing about this whole idea of artificial intelligence, right? People are very, very afraid of artificial intelligence and it's going to take our jobs. And a lot of people are also very fearful of technology and worry about the safety and security of their roles and positions. And I understand why that is to a degree, but at the same time, I don't see something like this eliminating jobs. What I see it doing is it maximizes your time so you can use your time more efficiently. Instead of a task that is going to take you 3 hours, it's now only going to take you 30 minutes. So you've just bought back 2.5 hours that you can go utilize to do something else that is maybe a revenue generating opportunity to bring in more money, or something that you've never been able to make time for before to continue to optimize your operation. So I don't see it as much of a like, oh no, this is something that again is going to eliminate positions and we're not going to need to hire people anymore because we're not going to need fence crews, or we're not going to need people to move our cows. That's not true at all. It's just only going to continue to allow for better optimization of our operations.
Yeah, spot on. And I was chatting to a rancher the other day, and the way that they framed it to me is Halter helps them stop them having to do $10 jobs so that they can do $1,000 jobs. And I think, and what they were saying by that is, like, they don't have to worry about the stuff that doesn't add value, and it gives them time to spend more time like in pasture, like with their animals, understanding what's happening. It allows them to be closer in terms of like health decisions and those things, to think more about pasture allocation and what they're doing. But then also, like, should we be investing more? Should we be buying more cattle today versus not? Like, those are the big decisions that have huge implications around productivity and profitability, and which you probably wouldn't have had time to do if you're doing all of these other jobs on a day-to-day basis. And so that framing of like the $10 jobs and the $1,000 jobs really excited me. And yeah, we're trying to give ranchers the chance to do more of those big jobs that matter for them in the long term as well.
I love that. Although I will say, the mother in me will say that we're still going to have some fence out there, because building fence is very character building. And I tell you what, I have a lot of memories from that. And my children are absolutely going to need to spend some time building fence so that they build a little of that tenacity within them.
I agree. We still do recommend perimeter fences. So keep those. Don't worry about the ones in the middle, but I agree. And we do actually get that question a lot, Jessie, too. Like, does it take away any of the stockmanship or the cowboyship to this? Can you still rope your animals? All of those things. And I think absolutely. Like, you should still be able to live and ranch the way that you want to there as well. And if anything, again, it just gives you more chance to spend that time on range or out with your animals as well. So yeah, I'll make sure that we still allow a little bit of that for my kids, for your kids as well.
So over on the company side of things, your hiring page and your careers page, it talks about hiring people who act like great founders. What does that actually mean when you guys are interviewing somebody? And who is the ideal type of candidate that you want to come work at Halter?
Yeah, We treat everything along two parts. One is technical and one is cultural. And those two things are equal for us. So technical, there's an element there in terms of like, if I'm talking about a sales role or a support role, like, have you done that before? Do you understand it? Are you good at talking to people? Are you good at having those conversations? That's fine. There's a bar there, but I'd say it's not that high. The most important one for us is that cultural fit. Can we see you at Halter? Can we see you supporting ranchers, being alongside them, helping them, supporting them, asking tough questions of them, all of those pieces? Like, that's the stuff that really, really matters to us. And both of those are important. So when I'm looking at our typical hire, there probably isn't one, but ideally, folks have had some experience on ranch. They might have grown up there. They might have spent some time there. It's an ability to talk really, really well to ranchers. That stuff matters to me a lot. It's often connections in communities, right? We hire people to be on the ground in very tight areas so that you kind of build those relationships. You can learn, you can kind of get up to speed. That side of things matters to me a lot. And then they've got to be open to learning, right? We want them to come in and we grow them, we invest in them and we support them. And I think that's another really important part for all of this for us as well. So there's no one type of person that works at Halter, but as long as they're amazing at talking to ranchers and producers, they are excited and they're passionate, like those are the things that really, really matter the most to us.
Well, that sounds like a perfect fit because the majority of people on Of the West are obviously people who have a background in agriculture or the livestock industry. So they are definitely the type of person who understands how to talk to ranchers and the importance of what it is that they do and have a passion behind that industry. But on that note, one of the things that they go hand in hand is the future of a company. And then not only the types of positions that you're hiring for, but those types of growth opportunities. So 5 years from now, where do you see Halter going and where do you see the team culture continuing to go and the types of growth opportunities for the people who work in the company?
Yeah, 5 years is a long time at Halter when we are moving and growing
especially
so
in a
fast.
tech company.
Yeah, I would say in the US, it's our priority market right now. It matters a lot to us. We've right now got kind of 60 folks on the ground today and are hiring so many roles to continue to grow and build that team here as well. So we want to have folks in all the states that we operate in, multiple folks, and we'll keep adding there as well to give that coverage to our communities around the place as well. The best thing about growth, I think, is the opportunities that it creates. There are so many people that I can point to say that they joined Halter here and then they moved into a manager level and now they're managing managers and they've moved and grown up there as well. And that's what I love is like, we will help you, we will train you, we'll give you all you need. But if you're a special person, the sky's the limit and you will have the chance to kind of grow, to lead and to kind of blossom or flourish at Halter as well. And as I say, I can look at Kate, who's just coming actually in to lead the US team. She joined as a senior salesperson and has moved up from there to now the point where she's leading the entire US sales team. And that's in the space of about 4 years. So it's cool to be able to see those examples and point to them and kind of say what that growth looks like. I also think that there'll be more things to come too. Like our product evolves. We're constantly adding new things, whether that is pasture for beef or repro, but we'll be adding more and more on an ongoing basis as well. So we want people that can come in and kind of build relationships with ranchers, but then grow those relationships as we become a more important part of what they're doing on a day-to-day basis as well. So growth is important for Halter, but I think it's more important for our teams and our people on the ground as well.
Well, that is the perfect way to move to our rapid fire round. I can't let you go without asking these questions. So the first one, Andrew, what do you hope people remember most about you?
I knew this question was coming and I still didn't have a fantastic answer for you. I think the most important thing for me is legacy. You mentioned it as well, Jessie, in terms of your children and what you want them to be able to do. For me, it's a very similar thing. Is I want my children to be doing something that's really meaningful for them, that they're great humans over above anything else. And I'd say that's the thing that matters to me most around how I want to be remembered.
What is a non-negotiable in your life?
I will stay with the family theme. I love being a part of my kids' lives and being an active dad. I try and coach their sports teams as much as I can as well. So my son, Jim, he's 8 years old. I coach one of his sports teams. Had a tough draw on the weekend, which was a bitter pill to swallow. But for me, it's being able to spend time with my kids, and I think balance that as well, right? Like work is so important to me. I love being at Halter. I love everything that we're doing here as well. But I also love coming home at the end of a day and having really quality time with my kids, with my wife, and being able to kind of support that. So that would be the non-negotiable, is the important times that I get to spend with my kids.
Okay, if you were a professional athlete, what would your walk-up song be? Although I will say, now that we've asked this, are you going to give us like a song that is known in New Zealand, or are you going to give us I'm very curious to hear the answer here.
I had a promising-ish rugby career and it broke down because of injuries way back in the day. But the problem with rugby is there's not the excitement that you get from an NBA game or an NFL game. So that was one of my regrets. I think for my walk-up sign, I'll go the Gambler. I know it's probably very often answered, but I think that's probably, as a sports person, I like to take big risks. I'll be the person, we call them speckies, like doing the speculative passes that may or may not come off. I was probably more that type of a player too. So I think the Gambler probably represents me the most in terms of that walk-up song.
That is perfect. And I will say that's probably pretty dang fitting considering you are in ag tech. Like that is not a space to go build a career if you are somebody who's not willing to take risks. So that absolutely tracks there. What is the smartest thing that someone's ever told you?
I think it's a bit of a cliche, but I think a problem shared is a problem halved is something that my mum used to say a lot of growing up. And I think that's how I approach things too, and how we approach things at Halter is, if something does happen, let's get in a room, let's work it through, let's bring the farmer or the rancher in early so that they understand they've got the context in terms of this as well. But I'd say just that approach to communication is a big part of how I think and how we think at Halter to kind of get the best outcome for our farmers and ranchers as well. So it's a throwback to my mum, Joy, but I'd say that's one of the things that I think about the most.
Oh, that is an incredible quote. A problem shared is a problem halved. Ooh, that is a good one. I know that people are going to be sharing that because that is very powerful. Last question for you today, Andrew. What is your favorite thing? Do you have a favorite book, a podcast, a program, a life hack? Maybe it's a travel hack, something that's just changed your life in some way that you think more people should know about?
Again, it's maybe a bit of a simple one. I changed to read before bed about 10 years ago. So every night before I go to bed, I read for about half an hour to 45 minutes. I don't think it's life-changing for many, but one thing that I started doing and I love is I read for about 45 minutes before bed. I started doing it because I was working very, very long hours. I'd finished like using my phone or computer, going straight to bed, and I couldn't sleep that well. And so I changed to this mode. It keeps me away from screens just before bed, which I think is great in terms of sleep quality. But it also just means that I've been able to read a whole lot more as well. And I love to do it. It's a great way to kind of unwind. I love a good Western. I think Lonesome Dove was one of my favorite books of the year a few years ago. I just adore that. That's been a great way for me to kind of separate work and then sleep, and also get the chance to read a lot more as well. So that would be my big hack, whether I'm on the road, whether I'm at home, in terms of better sleep and better life.
That is a genius hack, and honestly something that we should do more of, myself included, because I am the worst about that. I'll turn on a TV show to fall asleep to, and I should absolutely be reading a book. But I have to tell you, because you brought up Lonesome Dove, that is an American classic of every person within the Western genre of life, right? The Western lifestyle, whether you are a cowboy, you like rodeo, Western sports, everybody knows Lonesome Dove, whether they have read the book, they've listened to the audiobook, they've watched the movie, the TV show. And Robert Duvall was in Lonesome Dove. He starred in the show and he passed away earlier this year. And in that, I had to publicly admit that I, as a cowgirl who for my 36 years of life have always been on the ranch, I've never watched or read Lonesome Dove. And so now I really feel upstaged because you are a New Zealander and you have done that. And I think I really just got my cowgirl card taken away.
Well, it's never too late. It is a brilliant read. I loved it. And it's a chunky, thick book, but it flows and it's all about a cattle drive, which is, I guess, at the heart of what we do at Halter as well. So I think very apt for you to give a shot now as well.
Yes. Well, and I will tell you, I had a lot of people, for those of you who are listening, who are maybe also like me, who have never read the book or have watched the show, right? And you don't want to admit that publicly because I just did that for you. You can listen to the audiobook. And I had a lot of people tell me that the audiobook is a great one, especially if you're going to be putting a lot of miles in your car. But Andrew, this was incredible. You guys, if you are somebody who you are a producer on an operation, whether that is a dairy, in a cow-calf operation, a purebred operation of any kind, and you want to use Halter, we will absolutely make sure that you can find that information to talk to your local territory sales rep in the show notes. Of course, you guys know that you can find all of Halter's careers over on ofthewest.co. We will make sure that we link those in the show notes as well because they have some incredible career opportunities. They're all across the U.S. right now, which is incredible for those of you who it's really important for you to continue to live and work where you are, and moving to an area isn't necessarily something that's on the top of your list. You can still work for a great company like Halter. Andrew, thank you so much for today. We so appreciate you. You guys, we will be back next week with a brand new episode of the show. Until then, we'll see you then.
Cheers. Thank you so much, Jessie.
If you loved this episode, do us a favor and share it with someone else who might find just as much value in it as you did. We're on a mission to continue to grow and strengthen the future of agriculture and Western industries, and you spreading the word helps us make more of a positive impact. It also makes a big difference when you take a minute to go rate and review the show. We can't thank you enough for listening, for sharing, and for loving Ag and Western as much as we do. We'll see you back here for our next episode.